President Zelenskyy, I know you've just spoken, but I'm going to ask you the first question, if I may. I feel as though you have had to spend so much time speaking to so many different audiences in the world that when you get finished being the president of Ukraine, you may take a vow of silence for a few months. But while we have you, you talked about the next few months, the next 90 days. Can you give us a sense of what you expect? We are seeing signs of what is going on in Kherson, in Kyiv. Is this the beginning of a major Ukrainian counteroffensive?
Well, thank you very much for this question. The beginning of this counteroffensive, it happened on the 24th of February this year. And this is what I think. We got united, we had the togetherness. We didn't change, actually. We arrived at that date with the achievements I'm talking about. That was the genetic code, the nation code. Somebody got more mature, grew up, but somebody just wanted to be Ukrainian, was craving all that. Somebody wanted to be Ukraine because it wasn't very social not to be one, and because our territory was attacked, and some people were learning Ukraine no matter what. They were trying their best, even with great difficulties. And these are heroic people. Heroic people. Victor Pinchuk was talking about different people, about heroes, medical personnel, the drivers, the volunteers, the celebrities, the journalists. All of them were on the same side, and our joint profession is Ukrainian, and our mission is survival. So this is the most important thing. This is our counteroffensive, the way it is, our major counteroffensive. It started back then. Now it's unchanging. We cannot discuss what we are ready for, where we can go. This is our home. There is no way out. We know who our neighbors are, what they are like. We don't want them anything, but they wouldn't let us have anything. So there is no way out. One exit is to win, the only one, to survive. That's the mission. So your home has been subjected to burglary. Somebody's trying to rob it, to kill you in your own home. The statistics is very bloody, unfortunately. They are here, they're inside. They're on your premises, they are on your property. We should not leave our property. We are staying here. We are staying here, we are alive, or, well, alive anyway. I still believe in our victory, whatever it takes. And we have to do that alive. Our weapon is our faith, our sense of victory, our readiness, because if we cannot do that for this generation, I do not believe in that, but the war turns into a real war of attrition. If our generation cannot do it in their lifetime, then there will be plenty of time to continue that. This winter should be a breaking point. This should be a breakthrough, because we understand that they are actually retreating in many directions. There are people who know more detail, which I'm not allowed to discuss, but for us, it is important to be stronger, to deoccupy faster, because we're not crabs, and we cannot move backwards or sideways. We should advance. And in this question, there is an answer also. For what we are ready for, with whom we are ready for, and when we are ready. We are not the Soviet pioneers, Soviet Boy Scouts, but we are always ready to protect and defend our country, our land.
Said about the winter. Winter is coming. It is going to be very hard on Europe. Energy prices are already, in some countries, up tenfold. Electricity prices in Germany are now 15 times what they were 2 years ago. How worried are you that in these circumstances, as the price of energy keeps going up, people will start losing their willingness to support Ukraine and will start asking for compromises, relaxation of sanctions? Is there some way out? Is this a real possibility in the next few months?
I think that this is a general common problem for all Europeans. I would say also for the whole world. And we are representing here democratic countries based on our democratic values. And it is not for us to push Ukraine to some kind of negotiations, to some kind of compromise, because a sustainable peace could be achieved only on the basis of the internationally recognized values, on the basis of international law. And I would not support so-called, in bad sense, realpolitik. That means the politic of capitulation, the politic of being defeated, because it does not lead to peace, to real peace. Real peace means that both sides should recognize international law and common values. And here the situation is very clear. There is one aggressor and one victim. I know that in Europe there are some confused people, a smaller part of the population, which does not know who is the aggressor and who is the victim. I think the moral compass is not functioning by them, but it's clear that the big majority is supporting the European values, our democratic system. And then our only duty is very simple, to support Ukraine. This is what we can do. Support in terms of military support. It's a most urgent need. We should give Ukraine all what Ukraine needs in order to restore the sovereignty. Support in economic terms, also to overcome this winter, and also political support. And concerning political support, I would say that the European Union has decided, after maybe 2-3 months of discussions, to grant Ukraine the candidate status with some conditions. Most of the conditions are fulfilled, and we, Latvia and Poland, we have spoken about that today, will push for starting of the negotiations with Ukraine. Because I am convinced that after the war, after the victory of Ukraine, Ukraine will be one of the stronger European nations. Politically, after this terrible experience, which will base on our common European values, with a modern infrastructure after the rebuilding of Ukraine, and it would be not only for the benefits of Ukraine, but also for the benefits of whole Europe, this European perspective. And having in mind that, I think that our society has no real choice. It's we should support, and also we Ukraine, and also we should give our part in order to overcome this situation, the energy prices and so on. It's our common burden caused by Russia, but it is a price for our freedom. It's our contribution to the freedom of Ukraine.
Mr. Prime Minister, Poland has probably, in some senses, supported Ukraine as a society more than any other. I mean, the U.S. has obviously provided the most in terms of arms and money, but over 2 million Ukrainians are in Poland, and I find it astonishing that there are no refugee camps. These are people who have been taken into the homes of the Polish people. So you have a lot at stake. But in a few weeks, there's going to be an election in Italy. And it is quite likely, if the polls are right, that the parties that will win do seem to want some kind of compromise solution, some kind of ending of the sanctions. How are you going to handle these concerns? You already have a Hungary that has made requests in that direction. Now, if you have Italy, that becomes a growing force within the EU.
Well, like so far, our voice calling for freedom, for supporting Ukraine, was not only loud but also effective. And I believe that we will be able, together with our friends from basically the eastern flank of NATO, the eastern flank of the European Union, we are going to be equally effective in the future. Because if your neighbor's house is on fire, yours is not safe either. And this should not be the wisdom of the Central and Eastern Europe, but this should be the knowledge and understanding of the rest of Europe. Because what will come out of this war, apart from my deepest beliefs that Ukraine is going to win and defend its sovereignty and freedom, out of the war, out of those ashes of war, there will be the new shape of Europe also created. And this is why this is such a geopolitical moment, such a turning point in the history of the world, not only in the history of Europe. What Ukraine is doing today, Ukraine is fighting for yours and ours freedom and the future of the free world. And this should be understood by everybody, including our Italian friends and German partners and French and the others, because they all were sometimes of a slightly different opinion than we were. And unfortunately, it happens again and again. And indecision and delay, procrastination and hesitation are the parents of failure. So this is why we are organizing, together with, of course, our Baltic friends and the Czech friends and Slovaks and other countries, we are organizing the public opinion of the West to support Ukraine as much as they can. And in that context, also in the context of your question, Farid, one additional remark. What could be the next plan of Putin and some people in Western Europe and elsewhere who would want to go back to business as usual? I hope there is no way back to business as usual, because God forbid a victory of Putin would mean only another war soon after this, such a potential victory. So what could be the next hope or plan? Ukraine and Ukrainian soldiers are fighting with lion hearts on the battlefield. They are great heroes. And it seems to the Kremlin that it won't be so easy to defeat them, to win the war on the battlefield. So they might want to destabilize Ukraine through not allowing any financial support. Of course, this is not them who are giving financial support, but they have huge impact in Western Europe as well. They might want to organize it through their silent allies, through their agents, through their propaganda. The Russian propaganda is the most effective and efficient propaganda across the world for the last 300 years. So they might want to dissuade the institutions, the European institutions, the public opinion, don't give money to Ukraine. And then through this they could create a situation that Ukraine can be bankrupt. And what happens then if Ukrainian state is not able to pay the soldiers and teachers, nurses and doctors and judges and policemen? This could be yet another situation where the public opinion in Ukraine could potentially change. I hope it's an unimaginable scenario, but I try to think in a flexible way how Putin and the Kremlin can imagine the next stages of war. And what's the role of Poland and our friends? Us, until very recently, we have to persuade to our friends in Western Europe, free world, that both weapon delivery and financial support are critically important ingredients, are prerequisites for Ukraine to survive, to win, and to create, through this victory, a better world and not a worse world.
I'm sorry, Farid. Can I just add some words? I think it's very important. Minimum is very important for our country. That is about losing relations with Italy that you mentioned. So I just want to say that I agree 100% with the President Levits that is the common task for the near responses, not to lose the unity in Europe and in the world. What is important? How practically, not only theoretically, practically not to lose it. So we are not ready to lose relations with society of one or another country abroad in Europe, which we developed, we created. We did a lot of tasks, a lot of things to create strong relations between Ukraine and some of our partners, with whom before we didn't have so near, real, strong relations. And I think the idea was not only my idea, I mean that our diplomats, our Minister of Foreign Affairs, Prime Minister and Chief of Office, all we did that to do this communication weapon against Russia, and to do everything to do our partners who are founded the balance between Ukraine and Russia because of business interests, to do them near for us. So I think we'll do everything and we will not lose. And I think it will be a big surprise. Even in Italy, when somebody leaders in Europe now, they see moments where they can, we know with Morawiecki what about we're speaking. They want to have possibility, make more influence on Ukraine, not to lose relations with some business interests in Russia. So, I mean, it will be a surprise because it's very difficult for any leaders in the Europe. We did it. It's very difficult to be against their society. So, thank you.
Prime Minister Levits, President Levits, you said we are not going to push the Ukrainians to negotiate or to compromise. Does that mean that the European Union sanctions will stay on as long as President Zelenskyy wants them to stay on? In other words, again, I'm trying to think about the criticisms that could come up in Europe. Are you subcontracting EU decision-making on this issue to Ukraine?
Well, absolutely, we are.
Let me ask the President to answer
Sure.
first.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah. Of course, the sanctions are effective, in long term effective. And we can see already some impacts of the sanctions to the Russian economy. These impacts will increase, and it is, I would say, a technical task for the European Union to look and not to allow the circumventing of the already existing sanctions, and also to continue the politics of sanctions, all kinds of sanctions. Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, and Poland agreed now to restrict the visa conditions for Russian citizens. I think this is also a very effective sanction, and the Russian citizens should think about why it is so. But it is only one kind of sanctions. I think this is very important to keep the sanctions, to prolong them until the Ukraine will say now the goals of Ukraine, that means to restore the full sovereignty, to be secure in their own borders is achieved. And then, of course, we can react in the European Union and in the world. It is up to Ukraine, but was it up to us? Up to us is to help Ukraine, to help military, politically, and as Prime Minister Morawiecki stressed, also financially. Because the alternative is not realistic. It would not be achieved something with a compromise between an aggressor and a victim. That is because this compromise would provoke the next aggression. And we don't want this chain of constant aggressions. We should be ready to support Ukraine and, in principle, to fight in order to stop the aggressor. This is our task.
President Morawiecki, can I ask you, Prime Minister, can I ask you a question about Poland? So when I read in the French press or the German press about their concerns about Ukraine becoming a member of the European Union, they often seem to focus on the idea that Ukraine might become another Poland, by which I mean a country with which the EU is having complicated problems regarding the rule of law and what they regard as proper democratic procedures. So in a sense, wouldn't it be helpful to Ukraine, not just to Poland, to resolve these issues with the European Union and, by the way, get $36 billion of EU funds which are being held up? In a sense, isn't it part of what you can do to help Ukraine?
Well, this is a question which requires some explanation, because there is a hidden hypothesis between the lines, Farid, of what you said, what you asked me about. So I try to cut the long story short. When there was a reunification of Germany, German government back then in 1991 made a vetting of all the judges and prosecutors coming from the communist time. And they have left in adjudicating only some 30%. So 70% were out. So when we were trying to repair the judiciary system, post-communist judiciary system, our opposition found some good friends in, as you said, in Germany and in Brussels, to stop those reforms. So as you can imagine, I have completely different opinion on what you are saying. The rule of law was not was not there in Poland prior to us starting those reforms. And even today, we have serious issues with completely independent, with judiciary system which is not coping appropriately, which is not dealing with the law of the land in the Western European meaning. So I completely disagree with those hidden accusations. I would wish Ukraine to not repeat the mistakes of Poland from the 90s, from the noughties, because lots of them were made. And even the oligarchization of the system, which we have actually not been falling victim of mostly. This is a problem of Ukraine, and this is why President Zelenskyy is now trying to implement some special laws. So I think that many people in Europe right now see that this is quite a mistake what those accusations which have happened. But of course it's not easy for institutions to get rid of their previous habits. And even if the chairman of the European Commission agreed that whatever changes we've done are sufficient, there are radicals in the European Parliament and elsewhere who are drawing the European Commission away from this compromise. So I don't want to bore such a beautiful audience, Yalta European strategy audience, but you provoked me to this, dear Farid. So I had to explain this because the situation is completely different than liberal media, including probably some of your friends who have given you those information, accusing us.
So I think I was fairly reporting what people in Germany and France are saying.
Maybe so, I don't know.
I don't. So my question to you very simply would be, will Poland resolve its issues with the European Union?
As far as I'm concerned, we've already resolved them. Ask European Commission.
President Zelenskyy, everybody wants to know at what point you will be willing to start some kind of negotiation. You used to say every war ends with negotiations. You used to acknowledge that there was going to have to be some process by which the war ends. I mean, other than World War II, for example, where the total victory was the objective. If you think of the Korean War or the Vietnam War, all of these wars do have negotiations. Can you give us some sense of what would be the conditions under which you would be willing to negotiate with Vladimir Putin?
Дуже дякую за запитання. Якщо можна,
Thank you indeed for your
буквально
question.
одна думка з приводу
Just a thought
запитання
with
до
regard
прем'єр-міністра
to the
Моровецького.
previous
Там є
question to Prime
така
Minister Morawiecki.
наративна історія
There is an
асоціації
narrative
України з
over
проблемами.
there
Це єдине,
when
що
they
я
are
хотів
trying to
відреагувати.
associate Ukraine with
Тому
problems,
що ви
with
сказали,
issues.
Фаріде,
That's why I
і
would
дійсно
like to react to what
лунає
you said,
таке
Farid.
ті інші
Indeed,
пресі.
you can hear that from time to time in some media sources.
Вона не про образливість
It's not about
до змісту, що Україна така
being
асоціація, а
offended
про
by the
реальність.
content with respect to
Сильні
this
лідери,
association, but this is about
розумні лідери,
reality.
я думаю, вони
Strong
повинні оточувати
leaders
себе
and smart leaders
сильними людьми, які
should
тобі є шанс
should make sure that they are surrounded by smart people that are capable to develop, to evolve in all areas. Fools
слабими людьми.
are surrounded surround themselves with weak people because they are trying to allegedly lose kind of influence. I still believe that most of European countries have smart leaders, and they understand that Ukraine is not a problem, but just a game from the point of view of opportunities to develop. Okay, they block Black Sea. Everyone understands that creates problems for everyone. everyone, not only Europe, Asia, Africa, all the continents, but that is a problem, which means that when this problem was not there, many things depended on us, and we could really be helpful for the world. From the energy point of view,
not once today rise up with the Prime Minister and President, yes, how to help European countries because of Russia. Yes? І так само
and the same way we are moving towards the European Union, and we think that that will be a gain for Europe. We are with the European grid, we are ready to supply energy, which will add political foundation for stability of political elites of the European Union. That's why that's the gain. Yeah, that's what I believe, and we are fighting for that. I know there is an image. That image, yes, has something to do with our internal problems. We did have them, and we need to recognize the truth. We all have now this opportunity to reboot, if you will. Yes, there were mistakes. Many people made them in different formats, but now we are fighting for the truth. That's where I would put the period, at least now, as of now. So if we have this gain, I will just move towards your second question. Of course, everyone wants security. Nobody wants the war here, and that's important for us. And it's as important for European countries. And we are defending also Europe. Yes, we have the war here. And from this point of view, it's a gain, an advantage for Europe, let's be honest. Had we been defeated, they would have already been on the borders with our Baltic and European friends. I'm not sure whether that would have been the case, but that would have been a problem. Quite realistically, so let me emphasize that Ukraine is again an advantage. We want to put the end to the war. Space has changed. Opportunities have changed. Society do not want to talk to terrorists. This morning we talked, we had a conversation, and I gave you an example. That's my feeling, that we are not dealing with terrorists, because terrorists at least know what they want. Let's say terrorists will tell, I will let this airplane go if you give me the money. In this case, you can never be sure what they will tell you, what they will demand, and whether they will fulfill their promises. I cannot believe that the people who are not should never be given a hand to shake. And that's also applies to the format. It's not like in the war, you kill or you are killed, but you enter somebody's house, you rape, you kill, and you go. It's not a terrorist, because if a terrorist would have done that for kind of advantage against. So they're not terrorists, they just don't know what they want. So they are trying to talk through ultimatums. They want first to get certain status. So in order for this corridor to open, they need to retreat from our territories back to the point where we still could see that corridor. They need to demonstrate that they are ready to give up back the land that has never been theirs. This is a way to open the corridor towards diplomatic steps. Unless they are ready to change their status, they are not prepared to recognize their occupiers, they are not ready to say, yes, that was a historic mistake, they are not prepared to do that. And that's a serious thing. If they are not prepared, they do not have political will. So they are not ready to recognize occupation of our state. And until then, there will not be any serious dialogue. But what will there be? I'll tell you, that's about the question you asked already to Mr. President. What will happen? The reduction of assistance to Ukraine is just a detail of this global puzzle for losers. I don't think we are losers because reduction of blocking of macrofinancial assistance by a state or two, this is kind of a very slight push towards something, that we need to do something unless we cannot support you with money. But this is what will happen, and we need to accept that, and our society needs to accept that, and first of all, the government has to accept that, because it's on us to find a solution to this crisis. Reduction of supply of weapons will happen because of some narratives, not because somebody in Europe wants that. Of course, that's a desire, first of all, of Russia. So somehow, in some ways, this is what will happen. And our task here is not to let it happen. Here, the only help is with the society, with the nations, the peoples of these countries, because they are our roof and our walls. This is our new house, the society. Dear permanent partners mentioned by President Zelenskyy, all Baltic states, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, Poland. I would also mention Slovak Republic, Czech Republic, demonstrated their huge support in favor of Europe, that we will fight it and we will never give it up to the comrades from Russian Federation. I would add here the Great Britain, the United States, that we will also need to fight for too. So that's our task for the nearest 3 months, I would say.